So just to have an idea, so most of the talks today were about tracing at this operating system level, and I think a couple on the VM level, and just less one on application. Who here is interested in application level tracing? So, oh, okay, nice. Right, so my name is Juraci Paixão Kröhling. I'm a software engineer at Red Hat. And I work on the Chiadi project. Chiadi is the observability for service meshes. So if you know what service mesh is, then you know that you kind of need to have a tool to get what's going on there. And I'm part of the distributed tracing team there, meaning that I work closely with Jaeger and OpenTracing. And I'm a maintainer on the Jaeger project, and I'm a contributor to OpenTracing project. So what this talk is not about, right? So it's not about pretty much what we've seen today already. So operating systems, I'm not talking about tracing at the operating system level. I'm not talking about S-trace, F-trace, and so on and so forth. So some of those tools are new to me. They are just magic. I'm not talking about virtual machine tracing as well, more specifically virtual machine in the sense of Java virtual machine, right? So JVM, like flat recorder or stuff like that. And those tools are mostly for profiling, but can also do some tracing, but it's not the topic here. So the topic is, when I talk about tracing today, think about tracing at the application, right? So not this. And this is a tracing that is usually done with typical APM solutions. So things that you install on your servers, and they listen to your Nginx or Apache HTTP processes and create the data and send it to some place, probably some SaaS application. And more recently, we have OpenTracing, which extends on that knowledge, on that concept to a more current approach. That's more suitable for microservices. Now, then, what exactly is then OpenTracing? So, the project OpenTracing aims to standardize the semantics for distributed tracing in a way that is that we can talk about distributed tracing using the same terms across projects, across teams, across companies. And doing that is especially useful in distributed tracing now. Especially useful when we want to observe what's going on within distributed systems, like microservices. Right? So let's talk a couple minutes on each of those highlighted words here. Right? So microservices, they're just distributed systems. Right? So there's no secret there. There's nothing really special about them except that they come in hundreds, perhaps even thousands. Right? So, if there's one thing that we learned about distributed systems is that they fail all the time. Now, perhaps what is worse with microservices is that we actually encourage people to deploy multiple versions of the same service at the same time in production. There are very good reasons for that. Some could be testing, so we want two versions, we want to test some hypotheses, we want to do canary releases, so we want to have a new version deployed for some time. If it dies, then we don't deploy more. If it survives, we deploy everything. Or perhaps it's just a simple rolling deployment scenario like in Kubernetes. Right? So Kubernetes will take care of doing the deployment for regularly rolling scenario and most other things. So when we start to think about it, we have hundreds, perhaps thousands of microservices, and they are in versions that we may not even know that they're deployed. And that means that what we have there is a chaos. It's nothing more than chaos. And chaos is actually a good thing, right, in that kind of scenario. Because if we can observe into that chaos, if we can make sense of that, then it means we can fix issues that occur. And for each issue that we fix, we get more resilient. So hopefully, those failures will not cost money, not as clients, but in the long run, we get resilience. So it's very important for us to see what's going on inside this chaos. And this whole idea had brought a new term. I heard this term for the first time a couple years ago. So the term in our context is quite new, but the idea here, so observability now, is a term that comes from, I think, from physics, right? So the system is observable when you can make sense of its state based on its outputs. I think that's the definition they have there. And when we translate that into our context, into our world, it means that we should be able to tell whether the system is working by looking at these outputs. And outputs here could be metrics, logs, and tracing. And those are the so-called three pillars of observability. Now people say, well, it's not pillars, or some other people say, yeah, the R&D pillars. And anyway, the point here is we have three main primitives when we are looking into a microservice architecture. We have metrics, we have tracing, and we have logging. So metrics are things that we aggregate. So tracing is request scope information. Right, so we get one request from our client, like an Android client, taps a button on their phone, and we get a request in our backend, and we want to know which services did that specific request touch. And then logging is their events. So you add log statements to your code, and what you're basically doing is saying, this here happened. Right? So this is an event. So OpenTracing is on the context of distributed tracing, and distributed tracing is the tool that we use to tell what is the story of the request across services. Right, so it basically should tell us which services were touched, when, in which order, with possibly some other metadata, with some instance information about that request. So if we're using a service mesh to handle the communication between our services, we probably want the routing information stored within the trace information, right? So within the tracing bit of data. That routing information can be, I'm routing to the version B because the user is on Firefox, and we are doing some A/B test with Firefox users in mind. So see the idea of distributed tracing, and so the main idea here is to trace different services on different machines in different contexts. Now the way it works is by measuring simple units of work. So we are not tapping a system, so this is where it's really different from operating system level tracing. So we're not tracing everything that happens. We're not opening the tab and capturing everything that flows there. What we're doing is we're measuring very specific units of work. And we store information about that very small, high-level unit of work. We're storing information about that in a data structure that is usually called a span. Right? So a span is a data structure, and we can set a name for that span. So which is usually the operation name. So this is an HTTP request, and that's for the endpoint XYZ. A span contains also the start time, usually a timestamp, and then the duration, usually the end timestamp. But perhaps more importantly, perhaps more relevant, is that we can have references to other spans. And with that, we suddenly have causality, right? So we know which spans cause other spans. So you have a parent-child relationship or a false-from relationship there. But the idea is that we can make a tree-like visualization of that request. So that request that the user triggered on the phone is then a tree-like structure for us, and that's tied to that request. And on that visualization, we have spans not only for one specific service, but for all the services that were touched. And we achieved that by doing something which is very similar to correlation IDs. For those who work with logs, I think we've seen someone doing some correlation IDs here this morning. But the idea is we serialize context. So we use the concept of context propagation, right? So it's very similar to propagation hygiene, but the idea is we serialize the context before we go remote, and we deserialize the context once we get a remote connection. Right, so service A, before going to service B, serialize the context and puts that data into the field. If it's HTTP request, then it's usually in HTTP header. So I add the context to the HTTP header, call service B expect to see some data on this HTTP header, otherwise it creates a new trace. And if it sees there, it deserializes the information, and then it suddenly knows I belong to trace X. And my parent is span Y. Right? So we have this basic correlation of information, and service B can then continue the tracing. All this data is then sent somewhere central, which then assembles that anyway. In very quick terms, so I guess I hope that the code is visible to people in the back. But what we are doing here is very summer business code, right? So we are doing a hypothetical charge credit card message call, then charge order status, and then dispatch event to event. Right? So this is a checkout procedure in a web store. Now, if we want to do some distributed tracing there, what we can do is we can wrap this code. This is a Java code, so we can wrap a try with resources statement, meaning before it enters the try statement, we start with the span, and before we exit the try statement, we close this span, right? So we have the perfect opportunity here to time things. And we then add a name to the span. The name here is the order. And the last part basically says that if there is a span already in my thread local, then I want to join I'm a child of that local, right? So that's reasonable magic, right? So this is what we call instrumentation, and it is very similar to log statements, right? So if you add log statements to your code, if you stop to think about it, it's very similar to trace instrumentation. And I can enhance my span with some business information. So imagine that I need to store the order ID for this specific routine. I can then just get my current span, and I set a new tag to that span. Right? And then whenever this span is visible on the Y, I can then query all the spans related to the order ID. So once you have enough instrumentation across your services, you may end up with a screen like this, right? So this is here, Y. This is one of the solutions that I implemented the tracing standard. I don't think you can read all the data on the screenshot, but focus on the right bottom part there, right? So you see some lines and different colors of lines, and each color here is a service. And that means we are jumping machines, we are jumping services, we are jumping pods, we are jumping nodes, whatever you are using there. But more important here, we are jumping processes. Right? So we are serializing in context here, and we are serializing on the yellow part, and serializing on the blue part. And on the left-hand side, we have a quick view of what may have failed. So we have a exclamation mark in red here, saying, well, we may want to take a look at this process here or that process there. So in the first case, it's a cache miss. Right? So it tries to retrieve something from the database, but before going to the database, it checks the cache, and the cache, the get from cache method marks this kind with error, saying I see the cache miss. And if I get the cache miss for all my calls to that method, then I may have a logic failure in the cache retrieval, or I may have a misconfigured cache. And those are things that we cannot easily see when we are not explicitly looking for it. Right? So it's not failing a transaction, so everything is going through. It's just that code. So this code that is executed is consumed time, and memory, and network, and it's unusable. It's business. So we achieve all of that by instrumenting, right? So in that case, instrumenting our code, and there are several APIs out there that allows us to instrument our code. One such API is OpenTracing. So OpenTracing OpenTracing, it goes back to one of the first slides. So OpenTracing is that specification. So a bunch of people got together and said, well, let's agree on some terms. What is a tracer? What is a tracer? What is a span? What is a scope? How should things move around? And it's actually a single markdown file in the GitHub repo that people refer to, right? So it's very simple, it's very easy to read, it's not an academic paper, so you can just get up to speed in no time. Now, once that specification was done or stable in a stable state, the next logical step would be to create an API. Right? And then we just, the project created then a set of APIs that are official APIs for Go, for JavaScript, Java, Python, Ruby, and so on and so forth. Right? So if you have an application in Go that is calling a Java application, you can make sure that both are using the same terms. They may not be using the same library, they might not be using, so they may be in some ways different, but at least in the tracing terms, they are talking the same language. And a trace may contain spans from services in different languages. Now, another advantage of having an API like OpenTracing is that you can decide on the API beforehand. So you decide to use OpenTracing now, and then you decide later, perhaps at packaging time, perhaps at build time, perhaps at runtime, which tracer to use. Right, so for the Java developers here, you may think of that as SLF4J. So SLF4J is a logging library that we use with their code. And I, as a developer, using the developer, when I'm coding my application, I don't care what is the actual logger. When I run in production, I just care that there's a suitable logger. It's the same idea for OpenTracing. And such tracers can be Zipkin, Jaeger, some closed source ones, some that were here at this conference, Datadog, I saw also people from Instagram here. So those are all possibilities that you could use. Now, getting deeper down into the OpenTracing information, right? So this is in relation to OpenTracing, so let's go a little bit deeper there. OpenTracing defines a couple of primitives, and perhaps the most important primitive is the span. So you heard me talking about this word before. Now let's define what it is. So a span is basically that data structure that represents a unit of work. And for OpenTracing, it stores then the operation name. So that's pretty much the only required information when you create a new span is the operation name. And start and finish timestamps, they are recorded usually by the tracer. So you don't specify when you start and when you finish, you just mark new span and start span, and then you finish the span, and the time information itself is recorded by the tracer, using whatever mechanism you deem suitable. A span may contain tags, and tags there are key value pairs, and they may contain logs as well. So your application may then just use OpenTracing to do the logging. Of course, there are some caveats to that, but it's a possibility. And one key aspect is that the span may contain references to other spans, so a child-of relationship or a false from. So false from is a very specific use case. So you have a queue somewhere that receives a message, and someone put that item to the message saying, well, I'm they spend that information there. Now, whoever gets that information, that item from the working queue, would then just say, instead of saying I'm a child of that process, I follow from that. Right? So it's a different business process. And finally, a span contains a span context. Now, that's the part that is serialized when going remote and when getting information from remote parts. Right? So that's the only part that is that holds a state, let's say. So the span context contains a baggage item or a set of items and some implementation-specific state details like the tracer item, the tracing item, and the span item. And so there are some tracers that don't actually need those IDs. Like imagine a tracer output is a log file. right? So if a tracer is just logging things to a file, it does not actually need a trace ID. It will also not show a tree in line on any file, right? It doesn't make sense. So that's the implementation specific, but typically a tracer would contain that kind of information. Now, what all tracers do have is a set of package items, or they should have. A package item is pretty much like tags that we've seen within a spam, but they propagate downstream. So if you set a package item on service A, and then we call service B, C, D, E, then service E may have access to that package item set from service A, and without all the other services in between even being aware of that item. Right? So, as you can imagine, you can just play it once and read from that point and on. Of course, you can read upstream services on the downstream. But yeah, that's the part of the data that is serialized and deserialized. We don't call them serialized and deserialized, we call them inject, extract. But the idea is pretty much the same. So inject, extract, because the idea is we inject the context into the payload, and it's transport dependent. Right? So if we're doing HTTP calls, then we store the context into HTTP header, for instance. Yeah, and the final primitive that is that we should talk about is the tracer, the actual tracer, the thing that actually does something, right? The instrumentation always says capture this and word that. The tracer is the component that actually records the information. So it attributes this span, it stores this data structure in memory, batches it, and then it creates a buffer and sends somewhere. And it's the component that also performs the injection and extraction operations, right? Because the tracer is the part that knows that the context should have a trace ID or not, or just a span ID, or knows how to build and deserialize the information that is calling from the report. Now, so that's pretty much what OpenTracing is from the formal part. So we have the very first step is a spec. The second step is a set of APIs. But now that we have an instrumentation API, perhaps it would make sense for perhaps the same community or wider community to start instrumenting things out there. Right? So instead of me working on a Red Hat product, instrumenting my Red Hat project, I could also instrument things that are relevant for my clients and that would benefit your clients as well. Like serverless, like Java service, like Wildfly. Right? So by instrumenting the frameworks, we now have a stage where people building microservices using Spring Boot, they can have very good trace information without even writing a instrumentation on their code, on their business code. Right? So just by plugging a set of libraries and a tracer, they're able to get rich information from their application. And for Spring Boot now specifically, we have instrumentation for Azul, for REST template, and things which are commonly used on Spring Boot applications. Of course, it doesn't stop there. So if your application is supposed to deploy on a microprofile compliant server, you also get trace information for free. But if you have legacy applications as well, you cannot touch it for some reason, but you can do bytecode instrumentation as well. And much more. Take a look at github.com/OpenTracing-contrib. I heard there's a new page on OpenTracing's website coming this week with the registry of integrations, showing how you can use OpenTracing as well. So the focus here is mostly on distributed tracing, and distributed tracing is mostly relevant for distributed systems, the services, but it doesn't stop you from using on a monolithic application, or in fact, there's database providers out there shipping their drivers with OpenTracing instrumentation, and you can extract what exactly the driver is doing, and you can plug your tracer, or they can just write that information to the log file if you don't specify tracing. So that's a cool example of not distributed tracing, part instrumented with OpenTracing. Now, what is important to say is that OpenTracing is not a tracing solution, right? So we don't actually download OpenTracing and run it somewhere, right? So it's only the spec, the API, and then the instrumentation like this. So it's not a backend. It doesn't actually specify how the expense should look like on the wire. So it's not it doesn't have an opinion on it. And it's also there are no provisions in the spec that that allows interoperability between vendors. So it's not like I have my service A instrument with pin and my service B instrument with there, and it goes through function together. Right? There's no provision in the spec for that. On that particular case, it is quite possible. So if your application reports data in zip format, which is I would say the de facto standard nowadays for tracing format, it can consume behavior and other solutions as well. So this is not on the role of the trace. So there are some efforts going on both aspects here, both in specifying a wire format and on saying, well, the tracing information should be propagated by using these headers here, and so that it makes this propagation story more simple. Right? But those are not in the scope of the OpenTracing project. And perhaps what is also very important to say is that OpenTracing is not Jaeger, so for those who know a little bit about Jaeger, about OpenTracing, you probably heard about Jaeger, and that might be because some developers in the Jaeger project, they are also quite active in the OpenTracing project, and it means that whenever a new feature comes to OpenTracing, it is usually implemented in Jaeger, so it's very easy, as an open source solution, it's very easy to demonstrate that new feature using Jaeger, but that's the only reason. Right? So what Jaeger is a tracing solution, right? So it's the missing parts to OpenTracing, I would say. It's the tracer on the client, it's a backend to receive the data and to display the data. So I will now open to questions that you have, and I think we may have time actually for a quick demo. So while we ask your questions, I'm finishing setting up the demo.
Any question?
There were efforts at some point to add a tracer, like an API library for Rust, for the Rust ecosystem. I was involved with that with someone else. I was very new to Rust, still relatively am, so I couldn't really contribute much, and the project seems to have died out.
The instrumentation project.
The Rust binding specifically. Is there any chance it would be revived, I guess?
Are you willing to contribute again?
Maybe.
Okay. Yeah, so sure. I mean, it's an open community. So I do encourage all of you to at least take a look and see. We have a bunch of things to do, especially on instrumentation. I mean, instrumental road is a nice goal, but we need people to do that. So what possibly helps explain why that happened is most people involved in OpenTracing, behavior, and so on. Most of us have some reason to be contributing there. So in my case, I'm paid by Red Hat to work full-time in Jaeger, and OpenTracing means that I should give preference to tracing things related to Red Hat stuff like middleware, in Java, and OpenShift. So that's why you see very good support for Jaeger on OpenShift Kubernetes and but we welcome Rust. So please help us.
And there was a question in this area.
Thanks. So, what's the relationship between OpenTracing and OpenMetrics and OpenCensus?
Good question. So OpenMetrics first, because it's easy. So OpenMetrics is basically standardizing Prometheus data, right? So that's what I understand from OpenMetrics. Or perhaps not Prometheus data, but a format for metrics. Metrics is the things that can be aggregated. So counters, collages, and things like that. And it's not really, so it's part of the observability problem or this observability realm, but it's not directly related to tracing. So we can look at that and see what we can do to collaborate. Perhaps generating data that can be fed into an open metrics capable system. But it's not directly related. Now, OpenCensus is a, now that's my understanding, I'm probably wrong, so you better check by yourself. But OpenCensus, as I understand it, is an observability library. So it provides you an API and a very opinionated way of doing tracing, logs, and metrics. And that's wonderful if you're studying, a new application like now if you're studying to do observability for application. And OpenTracing is one of those two products. So there's an overlap on OpenTracing and OpenCensus. But OpenCensus, I see that as a different goal with how to reach that goal, maybe some parts of it. I hope that we can collaborate deeper with OpenCensus in the future. So I'm running the demo then, and if you do have questions, then just. But what I'm doing here is I just started the year. I have so this is all available online, teachable.com/Red Hat developer demos /EC2 tutorial. So if you have not heard of EC2 before, it's a service mesh that you use to so it's the service feed, and it takes care of all this resiliency problem or it's a great values and who has and so on. So part of that demo, we have 3 microservices, 3 small applications. 2 of them are on Spring Boot, and 1 is Vertex. Spring Boot. So this is one such application. I'm really good at how we just put some environment variables. Application. Save for the second application. Spring Boot. By default here, samples only 1 request in 1,000, so that's why I'm excluding constant 1, so I can trace everything, which is nice for them. Second service. And the third is a Vertex application, which is not consuming to that. See that I'm talking from the review file from that record, so you can do that yourself. Yeah, so we have 3 applications running, and I just get the roll call. That's 3 times. See here with 2 services, the customer and the purposes. And we see that we have 3 traces here. They're each related to one of the requests. And if you open one of them, so the first request took longer, so this is typical JVM. And then the second one is took far less time, so 19 or 20 milliseconds. And we see here a trace. So on the top here we have each service is a color, so we see how long each service took. And we see here the relationship. No, this is bigger. But it shows how a distributed tracing or distributed trace looks like. We can expand, and for those who don't know Spring Boot, at least previous generation, used to run on servlets, so we can automatically instrument the servlet stack, and we can also inject ourselves by using proper Spring Boot mechanisms into resting things. Right? So we can provide our on resting page, which is a component that is used to make outbound calls. So my customer application is calling my preferences application. Then we have the same, the other side of the connection here. So from the client to the server, we will say URL, and perhaps we may store some logs here, and we are going to go remote by, because we're going to be resting to it again, and it says that we're going to port 8080, which is our Vertex application. And that application is not here. And so that kind of demonstrates our host recommendation problem. So we know there is a recommendation service running somewhere. We see it being monitored. We can use with something else, but we don't see that as part of the business transaction. So it's invisible to us in that aspect. Now, so it would help if we could, instrument the Vertex application and so on. But if we are deploying those applications on Kubernetes and using Istio or a service mesh to make application, that actually gives us a opportunity to instrument that application at least, right? So that we can actually see that service. That's the second part of the demo, and this is the same three applications, but now they're deployed on Redshift, which is a Kubernetes distribution, and I will just run 3 times the curl command, and I'm opening now either inside OpenShift, and we should see the similar trace, but execution. So before we had a span with a trace with 4 spans, and now we have 12, 9, or 21, depending on what Istio did. And so that's only a simple one. This one is 9 spans. We can see here that Istio created a span before all service block control, and created a span after our application attempted to make a connection to the remote service. And now this is quite useful and interesting, but the actual power here is getting visibility into the application service. So before we knew that it was there because we saw it in our monitoring systems, but now we have the actual visibility into how long it took the overall transaction. And that's the key thing. This demo here is part of a bigger tutorial on Istio. So if you practically see Istio and how all this option works there, you follow this tutorial. I think it's quite helpful. But if there are no more questions, then that's what I have to do.
Thank you.